First item on there is any modifications to our agendas. Does anybody have any for the meeting of the Board of Trustees? Or if not, we'll move on. Public comment, I do believe we have someone here from the public. However, I do believe purposes for Lincoln Park permit application, so we'll come to that in a very short time. Next item would be the approval of the minutes of October 24th. Motion to accept? Second?
I'll second that.
Second? Okay. Any errors or omissions in the minutes? Not hearing any. All those in favor, approve them, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Minutes of October 24th have been approved. And our next item is Lincoln Park permit application. We're right on time here.
Yes.
And
Right
I
off a plane and into your meeting.
do have some additional information.
Okay.
I'll just pass down
Yeah.
to you guys. Shauna sent down to me a couple days after the
Yeah.
packet had been put together, so
Which
wasn't
doesn't
wasn't able to get it in the packet, but it's an addition to the same request, but just extending that request also to the bandstand, so there's a bandstand permit
Okay,
request
so
in there as well.
these are
Just, yeah, just, you
recirculated?
can just pass those down, Walter. So everyone's got a copy. Did I give you enough?
If not, we can share one.
Yeah, I got some others too. So I just wanted to share that with you guys to let you know it's not just for the park. She's also making a request for the bandstand too, which is a separate permit.
Okay.
So it's basically the same thing that we did last year with the Winterfest and the holiday parade. So Tim Kath will be set up on the park playing Christmas music in the park starting at 4. There'll be the kettle corn person is coming. We'll have somebody selling baked goods. The food shelf is going to have some light up novelty things that they're going to sell to raise money for the food shelf. So just a few vendors on the park, not a big thing. The Christian Church on Main Street, the name is leaving me, I apologize, but has requested they would like to do a live nativity. So that's a potential. That's it that I can think of. The reason that and of course the parade. The parade would be basically the same thing that you decided on last year, coming off of, we would block by People's Trust. They would come off of Dickinson and go down Main Street, and then they would open that back up. And then there would be, last year there was a sheriff, so that you could go past Bismarck, so that was blocked there. And then the parade turned down Missisquoi and ended, so it was just that little loop. And then last year there were a couple big trucks that parked on the park, were all lit up, people could see. So that's basically it for the parade. I'm going to the Lions meeting tomorrow to ask for their help with that, with their barricades that they do. It was a little, bit of a one-man show, not a one-man show, but I had help, but I was running around getting barricades and putting up barricades and asking people to help move the barricades. I'm like, why am I doing this when the Lions are the parade people? So, Jean McDermott is helping me with the lineup and things like that, so I'm going to go see what they can do to help support the effort. What else? The bandstand, so we're going to have a little bit of entertainment as well before the parade. The Opera House is having a Christmas show, and they're going to do some kind of entertainment to kind of promote that show. I was working on the electric youth dancers, but I don't think that's gonna pan out. So anyway, there'll be hopefully a little bit of entertainment for people as well too.
The lighting of the tree as well?
That will be at the very end of the parade. Santa will bring up the rear and people will light the tree.
Okay.
So it'll be one combined effort. The reason I threw the bandstand in there, to be honest, I'm not sure if we're going to, I had originally thought it would be neat, since it's gonna be blocked off on Bismarck, if we could block off that one little section in front of the park, since that's where everybody's gonna kind of be congregating, and have the entertainment right there, like in front of the park on that little spot section of Main Street, kind of like what they do for Dairy Days.
Did you head down Mrs. School?
Right, so this is, the
Gotcha.
entertainment I'm talking about is before the parade.
Oh, yeah.
So just before the parade starts, say maybe 4:30, I was hoping to block off that little section and have kind of like a little Main Street stage kind of thing, and have the entertainment there. That was when I was, but then I was thinking of having the dancers coming and they couldn't dance on Main Street, so that's why we were thinking maybe the bandstand. But I do feel like if we could block off that little section, that would be the better place, because that's where everybody's gonna be congregated to the front of the park. So to try to get people, now we're gonna have you back, and now you're gonna, you know what I mean? It just makes more sense to have it all in that central area, if we can do that. So I don't necessarily think now at this point I need the bandstand if you approve using that space in front of the park. So it kind of all depends on what you decide. But do you have questions about that particular series of events, or?
I don't have any problem. What do we need on this? A motion to,
Motion to accept the,
I'll make the motion.
So here's
Approve
the
her
question
permit.
though, for you. Last year I had to work with the sheriff. I remember that was something that I had to do. I worked with Tom Oliver to make sure there was a sheriff to block that off, so that I assume is, I don't know if that's something you paid them for last year or how that all shook out.
We didn't pay them for
Yeah,
that.
so
You,
maybe
you
they
made the
just-
contacts with them.
Yeah.
I never found out that part of it, but the village doesn't handle the law enforcement contracts anymore. The law enforcement contracts for this community are handled at the town level
So
now.
maybe you told me to talk to the town and I talked to them and that's what they told me to do. Okay. Anyway, I was just throwing that piece in there before you.
They must work that into their regular,
I think that's what they did. In talking to them, they worked it into their regular patrol.
I would think they would.
Mhm. Because we talked about potentially having a sign down here that said, I think they actually might have put a sign down there that said parade in progress or something, instead of blocking off, so people could still come up. It's not like it's Dairy Day. It's
No.
blocked off for a very short period of time. So, once the parade comes out and through, then cars are able to go.
Right. But you are correct, Shauna, last year, which was if I'm remembering right, I think the first year you tried
Yeah.
to do this, winter parade, the board did make it a requirement to have some law enforcement present, especially in the areas where you were closing off streets. And, if where you didn't have law enforcement present, you should at a minimum have some EVA members, dressed in reflective clothing,
Yeah.
so they could be easily seen at night, addressing any questions that, people may have if they're trying to get onto a street and you have it blocked off somewhere. With appropriate signage and stuff.
so, motion was put forward, second?
So with the inclusion of those same conditions from last year then, Guy? Or no?
What's that?
With the inclusion of the conditions that you had for EBA last year, or no?
That is with regards to safety issues.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So we have a motion, we have a seconder, all those in favor of
I
accepting the
seconded it.
permit?
I already did,
Oh, you did?
yeah.
Shauna
Guess
does
that's
a
it,
good
Jim.
job, she's got it together.
Well, thank you, Doc. I've got one person cool though. Thank you.
Well, it must be you just got back, or, huh?
I did, I literally got off the plane at 2:30 today.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Nothing like hopping right back into it. So is that a motion accepted?
Yes. That's been accepted.
All right, just making sure. All right, thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies. And ladies, excuse me. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Shauna.
She's been in Florida all week.
Yeah, she told me, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Just got
She's
back.
been in Florida all week with her two girls.
Suffering in that heat.
She has to get down there twice a year with the kids.
Yep.
She lives for it. Next item is street sweeper, Vermont Alternatives Grant Application.
Yeah, so we've, as the board is aware, we've been talking a little bit about the need to replace the very antiquated street sweeper that the village has. It's certainly had a long life with us. It's over 30 years old, but it's at the point where staff feels like to continue to keep repairing it year after year for the amount of money it's costing us to keep it running. It's probably gotten to the point where it's just good money after bad at this point. So we had raised with you earlier in the summer that for your draft 2018 budget, staff was going to put in some costs to look at a good used street sweeper that would give us hopefully many long years of life. In between that discussion and now, we've come across a grant opportunity that we wanted to present you guys with that may allow us, if we're successful in this, to spend about the same amount of money that we would have to get a good used sweeper and maybe get a brand new one. So that's what this Transportation Alternatives Program is about. They will they will fund 80% of the costs on a new one, so we would be on the hook for 20% of the costs. So, depending on how many bells and whistles you want to get on a sweeper, Gary, what would you say the cost estimates that you?
Right now, the cost that we got now for a full blown is having brushes on both sides and 2 air ride seats was anywhere from $265 to $285. But like the one at St. Albans, I don't know if you saw it in the city, got one, it's like $235, and that's pretty much just a curb sweeper in one seat. So we're looking probably on $230, $240, but the top, all the bells and whistles around $265 to $285. And this is not just a sweeper, it's a sweeper vac. So this is a truck which we can also vac our catch basins out. And right now we're spending around $3,600 a year vacuuming our catch basins here for the Cardigan. So we can do our own, with this machine we can also do our own vacuum for our catch basins, so we can save ourselves $3,600 a year.
So some additional services we may be able to get out of something like that as well and save some money in some other areas of the general fund. So, 20% of that, then we're talking $40,000 to $50,000 depending on what the final cost would be, which would be about what we were looking at for a good used sweeper, which is still a viable option.
How much did we pay last year, or how much did we pay out to rent the one?
For one day, it was $2,000.
$2,000 a day.
That's for getting it here and bringing it back, but one day of sweep was $2,000. And we've also talked to people that gave us a price on the sweeper. They also have used sweepers that we get anywhere from good ones between $35,000 and $51,000. If this grant does not paying out.
Right.
They
So-
do have some decent ones for around 35.
What time of year did you rent a sweeper?
It was,
In the spring.
this spring.
It was. It was
We had to
2000.
do that because our street
Yeah.
sweeper kept
Remember our
breaking
the hydraulic
down.
pump went
Kept
in.
breaking down.
We spent $2,000 on
Yeah.
hydraulic pump, and then this year, the gears and all the hydraulic hoses are blowing, and it's a chain-driven thing, and we can't find parts for a lot of it. It's an 83, and we're having a hard time finding parts, but now they're all hydrostatic transmissions. This is chain-driven.
So we wanted to put this grant application in front of you guys. It seemed like, you know, a good opportunity we should at least think about and discuss. You know, we would still have to pay for 20%. This would be for a new piece of equipment though, so for approximately the same amount of money that we would spend on a used
Kind of a
sweeper,
no-brainer.
we might be able to get a brand new one, you know, state of the art.
When will we find out if we got the grant? Or how
Well, we
much?
gotta submit the
It has
grant
to be
first.
submitted, Bethany Reimers from Northwest Regional is doing this grant for us. She's come up, met with Kenny, we know, took a picture of the old sweeper, she filled out how many catch bases we have, so she's doing all the paperwork for us. They'll be handing it on, I think on the 17th.
I think it's
it is.
due the 17th.
17th, and I believe she's handing it in to us for us.
Right.
So what we need is a motion to the effect to go ahead with the recommendation.
Right, to approve.
We need a motion to the effect that we go ahead and apply for the grant for a street sweeper as presented to us. So if we hear a motion from that, we can second one.
I make a motion.
We have a motion, we have a seconder,
I'll second that.
okay? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Okay. Sharp fence open.
All right, very good, thank you guys.
Yeah,
You don't want to stay for capital budget, Gary?
No, I'm good, thanks. Oh,
Jeez.
yeah, I got the letter in there, and we get plenty of today, we'll have our shorts approved this year. We'll do it first thing next
Get the heated seats and power.
spring. Yeah.
Next item is the five-year capital budget draft.
Okay, so if the board turns in your packets past the Transportation Alternatives Program material that's in here, you'll find a draft of a new five-year capital budget for the village of Enosburg Falls. Our current five-year capital budget will expire at the end of 2017. That budget ran from 2012 through the end of 2017. So staff has been working on getting together our new five-year capital plan, which would then run from 2018 to 2022, or through the end of 2022. So there's several pages to this. You can see it's broken down by department and by project with totals for each of those. I guess it's at your pleasure how you would like to discuss those. We can do it by department and go through each project. Would the board like to do that? Or would you like to look at more of like the bottom line?
Yeah.
You want to go through department by department? Why don't we do
We
that?
probably
We'll do
should,
that.
shouldn't we?
Yeah, and then if you guys have questions, you can raise them and we can get into more details in certain areas if you want to. So the simplest way to do that then is to turn to the page that has.
Page one.
Is it labeled one?
Yep. Page one.
Yeah, you're right, it is labeled one, my thumb was over it. Labeled page one. And that's got the simplest breakdown of, expenses on a per department basis, along with the year in which staff proposes we would do that project or make that capital expense if it involves purchasing a piece of equipment or something like that. So in 2018, then, under the wastewater department, we'd be looking at doing two relatively small projects. It's arguable whether, they should be listed in this as capital projects. We can take them out if you want. Technically, they're small enough that you could make the argument those shouldn't be listed as a capital expense. We have them in there for now, however, and one is the wastewater department's share in replacing the F drive, and then the wastewater department's share in replacing the roof on this building, which is 16 Village Drive, listed on here, the main office. So that's taken together, that is a capital expense to replace this roof, but if you look at it as a department expense, it's a relatively small amount. So those two things are really part of larger expenses which follow through in other departments too. So nothing major in 2018 under wastewater. Under the water department,
Could I ask, what's this Trout Brook Station pavement?
yeah, do you want to just skip around, or do you want to, I was
No,
going to
no,
go
no.
by year,
Oh,
so that we understood, which sections and what
Okay.
departments.
Okay.
So just going straight down that first column,
okay.
and that's all 2018. But we'll
Gotcha.
get to next year, 2019, and we'll go through those. So under water department, there's a few things. Two of them, though, are those repeating expenses. So the big thing under water department is replacing the well motors, and that's estimated $12,000 to do that project in the water department. And then there's two others listed, but it's the same two projects that are listed under wastewater: the F drive replacement server and replacing the roof on 16 Village Drive. So it's the water department share of those, which again show as $600 for the F drive and $2,000 for the replacement of the roof on 16 Village Drive. Then under general fund, we've got a number of different things. Some of these are in here because they are commitments that we have made. Some of them are in here because there are things that the Board of Trustees have asked to see in the budget. Joanne, you and I should talk about how this is broken down in here. 'Cause it looks like you've got this showing as if we're going to expend all of these in 1 year, which would not be the case.
That would make sense, yeah.
So that really should have been broken down into multiple years.
Okay, I'll check with Gary and get the year breakdown.
Okay.
This will work out.
But in any case, so that's an adjustment staff should make in this before you finalize it. Some of these things we're clearly going to finance over multiple years, not just expend that money all in 1 year. That would do devastating things to our tax rate if we if we didn't do it that way.
So both Elm
So-
and Hayes Farm Road will be spread over multiple years.
As well as the sweeper.
Okay.
So, but let's go back to the top of general fund there, under 2018. You again have those repeating expenses of the F drive and the general fund's portion of that, which would be $600, and then the roof replacement for 16 Village Drive at $2,000. Then under public works, which remember is part of the general fund, we have the sweeper replacement, which we just talked about. We're going to apply for a grant to see if we can get a new one. But in either case, even if we're not successful, with the grant, we would still like to replace that sweeper, but we would then look for a used one as opposed to purchasing a brand-new one with the help of the grant. In either case, the village's expenses are going to be about $50,000, because that's what it would be for the match on the grant as well if we were going to get a brand-new one through the grant program. So you're seeing the total of that $50,000. I would propose, and I assume the board would be in agreement, that we should finance that over multiple years, probably 5 years would make sense, to do that $50,000 note. We're also proposing, well, this actually isn't a proposal, it's something we're committed to. But again, we should finance this, and that is our match on the Elm Street sidewalk project. So if all goes well, if we can keep this on the track that we've been working towards for the past 2 years, we will see construction on that project next year in 2018, and therefore need to supply our match for that project, which is $104,375. But it doesn't mean we can't not finance it. We should finance that, take a loan out for that project, and we can, Joanne, we can talk about what's an appropriate time frame to look at that loan. I would propose a minimum of 10 years anyway, and maybe even 15 we should look at. So that will soften the impact on the tax rate significantly. Next project listed under the Public Works General Fund is a replacement of the box culvert project on Hayes Farm Road. Again, that's a commitment that we have to do that project. And we have a fairly sizable match on that. I think these numbers need to be looked at more though, Joanne.
Okay.
I think that's the total project cost, not our match on it.
It looks like it too, yeah.
In fact, I know it is. So, you want to revise that because we don't need to put the total project amount in there, we just need to put what our match is.
Not just 10% of 177,000.
Yeah. So it's about $18,000 is our portion
Match.
on that, right? It's not 177, that's the total project amount. But we could look at financing even the 18,000, and I think that's certainly reasonable. We could even finance it for 5 years. And that would lessen the impact on the tax rate. But that's another project, another grant project that we are committed to. We've received the grant on that. We have accepted it, and so we are obligated to come up with the match on it. Okay, so that was it for 2018.
Oh, you got the electric department.
We got the
Oh, I'm
electric
sorry.
department.
Yep, you're right, I'm sorry. So again, under electric department, we've got the repeating expense shown in all departments for roof replacement of 16 Village Drive. In the electric department's case, that's $14,000. We've got the F drive replacement server, again, in the electric department's case, their portion of that would be $4,200. The department is proposing to replace truck 103. That is the small
Pickup.
right, the small Chevy pickup that's normally driven by the utility person position. It's in pretty bad shape. I can testify.
Yeah.
I've driven that truck down to Waterbury and back last year, and it wasn't a fun ride. That truck is definitely past its prime in a lot of ways, so I would support replacing that truck and getting a good truck in its stead.
Yeah, with the 5 year note on that.
Yeah, I'd say spread that out over 5 years. We're definitely not going to show that.
Right.
Well, we can talk about that. Why don't we talk about that?
Yeah.
In that case, we may actually keep it under there to avoid section 108 approval by the Public Utility Commission, which is always a challenge these days. But we can get into that more. But we may end up leaving that as one expense. The department would also like to propose replacing the reconductor on the East Bakersfield circuit. That's a part of our electric department's service territory, and upgrading that area within our electric department service territory in order to give greater reliability to our electric customers on that circuit.
Has anything to do with the sugar makers, probably? Or is that?
Well, it's not specifically for them, but it will certainly help them. It will certainly help them, Guy. But it's not only for them.
Yeah.
It's to provide greater reliability to all our customers in that part of our service territory, which is the most rural part of our service territory. Try to step this up a little bit, move it along. So that concludes 2018's expenses under all departments. Feel free, Joanne, to step in and add anything if you want to through this discussion as well. So going into 19, under wastewater, we've got a proposed main plant pavement widened entrance.
That by the leach
So they're
farm?
talking about, they want to widen where this gate is out in front of the
Oh,
wastewater
out here.
plant. The reason that Brian has proposed this is that the vehicle that comes in and removes some of the waste out of the treatment facility is quite large. It's a semi-truck. And it's got barely enough room to get through that gate as it exists right. I mean, it can get through, and it has been getting through, but there's not a lot of room on either side when he backs in there. So they'd like to widen that entrance a little bit to give more room as sort of a safety factor for the truck when it backs in there. So that's a estimated $5,300 to do that.
No, that's the Trout Brook Station pavement. Main plant's 3960. We
Okay,
skipped
so I
one.
missed one, I'm sorry, you're right.
Trout Brook is
So
down by Leach's.
right, you're right, Guy. So the pavement widening entrance is $3,960. So then I have to go back up one line to the Trout Brook Station pavement, and that's $5,340. You're right, Guy, I'm sorry.
But Leonard asked about,
That's the one you were asking about.
Yeah, what's
that's out by
that?
Leach's farm on 105, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that Trout Brook? Right down foot the hill there.
Is it like
Do you know where he's
substation?
talking about? Is your question just where is it?
I know there's
Yeah,
a station there.
So
It's
on-
in the
on
gully?
Route-
Yeah.
Yeah, on Route 105, if you're heading west, I'm sorry, east, on
Ber-
Route 105
Berkshire.
from here
Yeah.
towards Berkshire, yeah. You go just after Hannaford, you kind of go up a little hill, and then you go drop down into a gully, and that station is right on your right-hand side. It's kind of, I could understand if you've never noticed it before. I think probably most people just drive by it. and don't really notice it. But they would like to do some work on the entrance to that, I think partly for safety reasons. Because it is kind of obscure and it's in that weird little gully there, a lot of people just cruise really fast through there. And when Brian needs to go in there, you know, to check on that facility, I know he's mentioned to me a few times in the past that it's a little bit of a safety concern for him when he's got to slow down and then make that sharp right-hand turn to get in there, because that's 50-mile-an-hour speed limit at that area on 105. And if someone's just coming up over that gully, they might be like almost right on top of him. So he wants to kind of widen that out a little bit in order to give him a little easier and perhaps a little safer and quicker access into that entryway. Okay. So the main plant pavement at Wyden, I just went over with you. Sorry about that. My eye missed a line and dropped down.
Next one is the aluminum doors and casings.
Yep. Any questions on that? Okay. So that's everything in wastewater, water department.
65 grand.
Right, again, that's something we would capitalize. We wouldn't put it under, just 1 year.
Nope.
We would look at financing that, so we can talk about, how we want to do that, but we're definitely not going to finance that in 1 year under the water department, but that's the total expense on that. General fund, then Kenny and Gary are proposing, replacing the 2011 Ford 550 dump truck. They've got an estimate of $108,000 to do that. Again, we would finance that, though. That would, it's not something we would try to do in 1 year. We would probably maybe even look at 6 or 7 years to finance that. That's a very expensive piece of equipment. So we've clearly still got some work to do on this, but we wanted to go over the draft with you.
Oh, that's good.
Then switching to electric. We've got generator shelter listed at $6,000. What that is we have a generator down at the electric department at 42 Village Drive, but it just kind of sits out there right now. It's behind a gate. It's not, just exposed where anybody can get at it. It's behind a gate, and so it's locked up every night. But it's just there. It's not well sheltered at all, and so the thought was we should probably at least put like a lean-to type addition off from the main building to cover that generator, so it's got some shelter in the winter and in bad weather. And that's what that $6,000 is. There's a reclosure on the substation the electric department would like to replace. It's $6,500. They would also like to talk about replacing the windows on 42 Village Drive. I don't know if you guys
Those are the big
recall.
windows that look toward the canal there.
They're original to the building. They're 1940s vintage.
Need something there.
They're in terrible condition. One of the reasons I think we were all very glad when the offices moved down here, because that back end of the building, which was all 1940s era, and really had little to nothing done with it since then. Those windows are just in terrible shape, and
Well,
in the summer it's very hot in there, and in the winter it's really cold.
those windows could probably be shrunk down a little smaller, or not.
Yeah, they're huge too.
They're great.
And that's part of the problem. I mean, they go almost all the way to the ceiling, and those are like 14-foot ceilings.
Is there any chance that historical situation is gonna come up with that?
Only if we ask for grant money to fund it. If we're paying for it for ourselves, it's not a problem.
That's not-
But if we go to historic preservation and ask them to fund the replacement of the
Is
windows,
this
and
under,
they're gonna tell us what kind of windows.
is
we
this
can put
under
in.
historic preservation?
No.
I don't believe it is.
No, it's not.
No, that was done in the late
No problem.
40s, that building.
But state of Vermont weatherization, we're taking on commercial projects as well for a while.
And in that kind of case, that's state money too, so they
Yeah.
could also potentially
Yep. Tell you
dictate.
how to do it.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, but if we pay for it ourselves, then we're under no obligations
Okay, I wasn't sure how that.
to historic preservation. It's our money, we can spend it how we choose.
With what we're doing to the electric plant, is that still going to be used, that part of the building?
Yeah, it is currently still being used.
No, but you're talking about all the, I call them breakers, all the
Yeah, the
panels
control
on that
panels.
wall. They're
Yeah.
still going to all be used?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, remember, we cut back on a lot of that electric work
Yeah.
that we had originally planned to do for the facility in order to get at least most of what we wanted accomplished through what we're now calling phase 2 of the project, which is the actual construction work, and stay in budget. I don't know if that rings a bell with you, Leonard, or not,
Okay, yeah.
but that was a big part of some
Right.
of the reductions in the scope of work we made was some of that electrical work that we thought was going to go to further automate the system. And we're not going to do that now.
Yeah.
That's going to have to wait another 5 years out or so. Remember, we talked about, once we get through the FERC relicensing process, then we're going to have to come back and look at picking up the rest of the scope of work that we were not able to complete under phase 2 and see if we can get it done later. But we really need to get through that FERC relicensing process first. Let's see. So after the windows then, we're looking at doing a line upgrade in the East Bakersfield Witch Cat Road area. And the department is estimating $30,000 to do that line upgrade. They would also be interested in building a small addition just for cold storage on the back end of where the garage is underneath 42 Village Drive. You know the space that I'm talking about? There's like kind of 2 levels to that building. You got the main entrance where you go up that little knoll and there's the front door. And then underneath, if you go down the left side of the building, you go down.
Used to be the garage back.
Yeah, I think a long time ago, the ambulance used
Yeah.
to be stationed down there, I was told. That's going back to like the 1960s and 70s.
Back when the
I
world
think.
was bigger.
Right, exactly, Guy. We had more space in the world. But they're looking at needing some more cold storage space. So this would not be space we'd be heating, but it would be, 4 walls and a roof attached to the main structure where they could just, store some things, equipment. They're starting to see a time where they're going to start running out of space in that garage area for supplies, utilities, equipment, stuff like that. And so we're thinking about maybe in 2019 building a small addition on there just for cold storage. Okay, what's main line power conversion? Oh, they're talking about Main Street. So they want to do an upgrade on the main line, which would run up through Main Street. Yeah, great. You'd have to talk with Dave a little bit more about exactly what that entails. But actually, I'm sorry, that's in 2020 anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so that completes 19. We can go back to 20. And so we got a main plant paving under 2020 for $10,770 for wastewater. Nothing under water department for 2020. And
Nothing under the
Nothing
general,
under general fund.
Nothing under the general
One,
fund.
2, 3. 1, 2, 3, yeah, nothing under general.
Oh.
And electric has 40. Oh, my eyes
45,000.
flipped over again, that's 45,000 again.
Power conversion
Right,
is 70.
I again spoke out of turn, that was in 19, that was in 2020, for that North Main line conversion, that's in 2020. So one thing under electric department, which we just reviewed.
Yep.
2021, under wastewater, looking at replacing the air handling unit blower room, 13,233. For water department, looking at a 2-inch water line, Route 108 to Duffy Hill Road at 13,500. Let's see. Under general fund, can you elaborate on that, Joanne?
There's none under general fund for 2020.
What's that 180?
That's
If you-
2021.
I thought we were on 2021.
I'm sorry.
Your 180 is the last page, before you hit electrical.
Okay,
What item?
yep. St. Albans Street paving.
Come on in, John, it's fine. 180 is, there's no,
St.
Dave.
Albans Street paving.
right,
Yeah.
that's 2021, looks like,
It says
right?
Hayes Farm
Yeah,
Road.
so can you,
Oh, I'm sorry, the header fell out.
That's the Hayes Farm Road.
It's on the next page,
so,
just above the electric.
okay. So it looks like Gary put in 180,000 to repave St. Albans Street, assuming that we're not able to get any grants to cover that between now and then. That would be the full amount to repave St. Albans Street. In 2022, then the final year of the capital plan, we've got listed under wastewater department at $5,000 expense to replace floors on the main plant. Under the water department, we're showing $150,000. That's for a new 8-inch line at the intersection of Missisquoi Street and Pleasant Streets. And under general fund,
Nothing there. But over
it
there.
looks like we're showing
295.
Yeah,
295.
295.
Okay, and this is obviously up for discussion. This is 5 years out, but Gary is assuming then that we will not receive any grant funding and that we will repave the entire length of Hayes Farm Road. And that would be the expense on that. Obviously up for discussion if that's something you want to keep in this or not. But that's how Gary has shown this in the draft capital plan. And then under electric department, replacing the 2.5 ton Dodge bucket truck in that year, 2022, at $150,000, and a line and pole upgrade on Duffy Hill Road for $45,000. And that's what, that's then the entirety of all the projects we're looking at in each department over the next 5 years. So it's a little bit rough.
But it's a
Obvious-
stepping stone.
Right, obviously, we got a little bit
Yep.
of work to do to refine some of these numbers. Joanne and I will talk a little bit more about capitalizing some of those larger expenses so that they reflect over multiple years and not just all in 1 year.
That's not been done historically.
Pardon?
That's not been done historically. They've always been like the full amount in the year.
In the previous capital plan?
They're
Okay.
not spread out.
All right. So if you want it kept that way, that's fine. I mean, this is for discussion purposes, but I know it gives you a bit of a shock when you're seeing an expense of that amount in, say, the general fund, when you know what the increase on the tax rate is going to be as a result of that, when that's not really the reality if we were to capitalize it and finance it over.
Only 30 cents.
Right, what's another 30 cents on the tax rate, right, Guy? All spends the same. Okay, so we got some work to do with that, but we wanted to at least put a draft in front of you, let you know what we're looking at. Certainly welcome any thoughts that the board has about that. Don't be shy about coming to see either Joanne or myself. You know, if there's something you want to discuss on that, and we'll bring this back to you again at a future meeting.
Thank you, John. Next item is the SQR report. That's the monthly report, which is reported annually, isn't it?
It's quarterly.
Quarterly.
This is the quarterly report
Yep.
on the reliability of our electric department and its performance over the last quarter. We are required by the Public Utility Commission to have this on the board's agenda once a quarter. And so it's time again to have this, and there's nothing, you know, glaring that stands out in this SQRP. We are within our baseline performing efforts in each of the categories that are outlined here. But as I said, we are, you know, we're required by the PUC to have this each quarter on a board agenda, so it is there for your review. And that's it.
Next item would be the manager's report. Jonathan, you're on deck.
Yep. First thing, want to make the board aware that we have been told by our insurance company, Acadia Insurance, that they are canceling our insurance policies effective January 1st, 2018. There's no specific reason that was given by Acadia, but one can conclude that the number of workman's comp claims that we have filed over the last year and a half, coupled with the insurance claim that we filed with them on the damage to the Kendall plant turbine, were most likely the reasons that they have decided to cancel our policy. So our insurance company itself is Town and Country. They're located down in Cambridge, Vermont, and they are currently in the process of finding replacement policies for us to take effect January 1, 2018, but they're still doing that research. And I'll let you guys know once, you know, we've got something lined up, but we're still waiting to hear back from Town and Country on what kind of quotes they've been able to get for us. But I felt the responsibility, I need to at least tell you that Acadia has canceled all of our policies with them.
What kind of premium are we paying now per year?
You want the total on everything?
No, approximately on.
Because they cover,
with that
you know,
company.
multiple departments, and each department has different, you know, different policies.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
Electrical workman's comp would be higher than.
right, each
Rating
department has a
department.
different rate,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it gets kind of complicated, but maybe the best thing, if you really want to know, Guy, the best thing
Yeah,
to do
I'd
maybe
stop,
is to
yeah.
get with Joanne,
Yep.
you know, tomorrow or something, and we can get that number for you.
Do we have to deal with Town and Country?
We don't have to. That is the insurance provider we've always used.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we can change, and we've looked at some other places in the past, including Vermont League of Cities and Towns. But even when we've done those comparisons to Vermont League of Cities and Towns in the past, to be honest, Town and Country had the best rates.
Okay.
And that's why we've continued to stay with them.
Okay.
So we'll just have to see what they can do for us with, a new insurance company. Next, want to make the board aware of where we stand in terms of delinquent taxes. As you guys recall, village taxes were due October 30th. We turned over $63,831.39 this year to Andy Bolio, who is our delinquent tax collector for the village. That is the highest amount that anyone currently working here for the village can recall ever turning over to the delinquent tax collector. And if you look on the back of the manager's report, you'll see an email from Lori Stanley, our senior bookkeeper, listing the last 4 years of delinquent taxes that we've turned over to Andy, and this is by far the highest amount.
Sign of the times.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I would say too. I think it's a sign of the times we live in. But I wanted to make you guys aware of that. Lastly, I wanted to just give you guys a report about the October 30th windstorm that we had, not only in Enosburg Falls electric service territory, but it hit the entire state of Vermont and all of New England as well. This was an extreme event. It's an event that is becoming all too common across the world, the nation, and in Vermont too. Vermont is clearly not immune to the changes that are occurring in our climate during the 21st century. This is just the latest, and it was very serious, and we were lucky we did not get more damage that we did. This storm began approximately 2 a.m. Early in the morning of October 30th. It was a very violent windstorm. As I said, it hit all of New England. There was not any of the 6 states in New England that were untouched by this. Some areas were, affected more than others. But by 7 o'clock in the morning of the 30th, when the office opened, we had 950 out of 1,730 customers out of power. So it took out over half of our electric utilities customers in just those few short hours that it whipped through here. I am very happy and proud to report, however, that once again our employees all pulled together in every department in a cooperative effort to restore power to all of our customers as quickly as possible. And all of Enosburg Falls Electric customers had their power restored by Wednesday afternoon, November 1st. We apologize to our customers that were out for a couple of days there, but rest assured we were doing everything we could to get everybody back on power as soon as possible. And there were many electric utilities across Vermont that had customers out for significantly longer than that. We actually sent a crew down to Stowe to help Stowe Electric with their situation. Stowe was impacted particularly bad, and some of their customers did not get restored with power until the following Sunday, so they were out for almost a full week without electricity. And we did, after we had restored all of our power, we did send a crew down to help Stowe. They had multiple electric utilities across Vermont and even some from Massachusetts that came up to help Stowe in that effort to get their customers back up again. So I just wanted to give you guys a short report on that extreme wind event and what occurred on that day.
Thank you, John.
Yep, and that's it for manager's report.
Next item is other business. Does anybody have any other business to discuss at this particular time? No? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiations in which premature public knowledge may compromise the position of the municipality, and also personnel items. So with that, we'll go into executive session. We have a motion to that effect? Second?
Second that.
All